And in classic Derrick Lewis fashion, somebody got put to sleep and the beast was unleashed. Dude, wasn't it crazy that going into that fight, Chris Daukaus was favored to beat Derrick Lewis? It's like, at what point do people respect Derrick Lewis for not only his skill, his knockout ability, but the fact that longtime veteran and a guy that ain't going nowhere? So these young up-and-coming guys, why are they favoriting him over a Derrick Lewis, a guy that's fought for the belt 2 times?
I think you got to look at Derrick Lewis and also see what it's looked like when he's had opportunities to fight for the belt, or even what it looked like against Francis Ngannou, who's obviously the champion right now. And I think when people see him against elite level competition, the DCs of the world, when you compare him to the Cyril Gans, who absolutely outclassed him, I think you start to kind of disrespect what he has accomplished, the type of people he has put out in the octagon. And watching Derrick Lewis in that fight, and we were talking a little bit before the show, and I was asking you about all the Chris Daukaus feints, and I was like, well, first off, like, you fainting like Day-Day on Friday after next. You know what I'm saying? This is not top flight security of the world, Craig. And when you're fighting against a dude like Derrick Lewis and you let him get within range and he starts to have opportunities to touch you, it changes the entire fight. What I did love was that as long as Chris stayed on the outside, you can see Derrick, he worked kicks, right? There was a roundhouse up top and he kept him off balance. And we saw a little bit of that skill set, DC, that you just mentioned, that I don't think people really give him credit for.
What they don't give him credit for is his athletic ability, right? You always see Derrick do those jumping kicks, the jumping double kick, and you're like, wow, he can actually do that. I've been in there with Derrick Lewis, and I'm telling you, the power is so real.
Right.
You're constantly under duress. You're never at ease when you're in front of him. Now, one thing that I did, one thing that Cyril did, is we fought him on our terms. If you fight him on his terms, you're in trouble. And you saw Chris Daukaus find himself in trouble whenever he got hurt, Ryan.
Yeah.
And he didn't disengage. He didn't try to wrestle. He didn't try to, create space. What he tried to do is throw with Derrick Lewis.
Right.
You can't do that. You can't throw with the Black Beast. Because if in the in-between, when you're throwing and he's throwing,
and
if
you
he
get
gets
caught
there first, you're done.
Right.
You're absolutely done.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened right here with that little short right hand. He heard Daukaus.
Boom.
Daukaus starts throwing with him on the edge, and then bang, he hits him with the punch and he stumps him. Look at his face, bro.
Yeah.
That only happens when Derrick Lewis hits people.
DC,
they go out completely.
But that's the other thing too, though, DC, and we've talked about it on this show many times. When Derrick Lewis hits you, that's a crisis. Right? You are in crisis because now you realize what type of power the Black Beast has. And so it makes people kind of revert. You're either going to revert to, your training, or you're going to go to what feels natural to you. And so, guys like you, who are wrestlers and understand how to tie him up, how to disengage, how to get out of, the striking match, at least for a second, to get yourself back together. That's what y'all do. Cyril Gane, he relied on his athleticism throughout the entire fight and kept Derrick Lewis off balance.
But he frustrated him. He frustrated him.
And it seems like fighters like you, fighters like Cyril Gane, fighters that can be patient with Derrick Lewis, that can make Derrick Lewis work and don't get in necessarily fights that he's comfortable in. He almost seems that mentally he starts to discourage himself. That mentally he gets to a point where he's like, man, I don't know. And I think that's why he mentioned championship fights being 5 rounds, because when guys know they have 5 rounds, right, they can wear on you mentally and emotionally along with physically, and you don't have to go so fast and get in his wheelhouse.
But Ryan, that's kind of people that we know, right? That's kind of like us, like Louisiana people. Derrick's from New Orleans originally, but you know how people down south, we're almost like the front runners a little bit, right? You get out ahead and you can do anything. You start playing basketball and the guy can't guard you, you're good.
Right.
But the moment it starts to go sideways, they get frustrated and sometimes they kind of check out. And I feel like Derrick is that guy. When Derrick starts to get frustrated, he's like, to hell with this. I'm good. Because even when we were fighting, right? I would take him down and I could feel him moving early, trying to do the right things.
Right.
But then as the fight went longer, he started to make mistakes because the frustration starts to show itself. With Cyril Gane, the same thing. Man. After a while with Cyril, it was almost like he wasn't trying to knock him out anymore.
Yeah, enough was enough.
He was almost trying to survive, right? He was almost trying to survive until Cyril put him out of there. So it's a matter of him just keeping his mind. Now with Chris Daukaus, he's a guy that played him and fought him on his terms. And Derrick does what he does. He puts you out. The guy is one of the best heavyweights we've seen in a long time.
He is.
But I think when people look at his limited skill set, they kind of overlook him.
Yeah.
And those are the mistakes that young fighters also make. They're not knowledgeable enough, RC, to know that you have to be very, very careful and patient when you fight Derrick Lewis.
And listen, I know people with one trick get a bad rap, right? I played with a guy named Mike Wallace. He's from New Orleans as well. And Coach Tomlin would always put him on the screen. He's running by people, catching touchdowns. And Coach Tomlin would be looking at the screen and he'd be like, there he is. He's a one-trick pony. And he'd like pause like 3 seconds and go, but it's a hell of a trick. And and I think that's
a good trick,
right? I think we're starting like we're starting to miss that one. Derrick Lewis isn't a one-trick pony, but if we're going to say he got one trick, that's a hell of a trick to have when you could put people's lights out like that. And you mentioned fighting Derrick Lewis and what it felt like when you were able to take him to the ground and that he worked a little bit early and he kind of got frustrated and you could see him start to make mistakes. You also fought Stipe Miocic in one of the biggest trilogies in UFC history, and that's a fight that Derrick Lewis says that he wants. And so if the people want that fight, if Stipe agrees to that fight, what do you see that being? And honestly, do you think it will happen or should happen, DC?
Honestly, RC, when you look at what Stipe has done since losing to Francis, sitting out, it's worked before. I don't know if in today's landscape it works now. Now, if I'm Miocic, I'm fighting Derrick Lewis because I think it's a favorable matchup for the champ or the former champion. I think that this matchup resembles the Francis matchup in fight number 1 because, as you've seen, Derrick can struggle with the wrestling. Now, here's the issue. When Derrick Lewis fought against, I think it was, I can't remember the guy's name, Alexander. I'm not going to say his last name, but he tried to take him down over and over again.
Right.
I can't remember his name. It's like Oleg Shajik or something crazy like that.
It's close enough.
Yes, that's why we need John Anik, and I'm glad he stopped by a little bit later. He'll correct
help
me
us
on this
out,
one.
right?
Yes, he definitely will. But in that fight, he showed improvement. And then he came back and he fought Curtis Blades. And he showed even more improvement in the wrestling. So now, as Derrick has started to shore up that hole that was so big, how dangerous is he a fight for Stipe Miocic?
Right.
Do I think that it should happen? Yes. Because I do believe that at some point, Stipe is going to have to beat somebody before they put him back in there.
It seems
for
like
a championship fight. Especially with Jones hanging around now.
That's what I'm about to say.
Dude, it's almost like he's third. It's almost like the guy's third now. It's like you got Cyril gone first, RC, and it seems like Jones just hanging in the wings, waiting for his opportunity. So I think in that time, Stipe needs to fight someone.
Yeah, like if John Jones gets his life together at any point, he'll have the next opportunity to fight for the heavyweight championship. I don't see that, going any other way.
With that.
Yeah, I don't see that going any other way.
Nothing's wrong with that.
Right.
Nothing's wrong with him getting his title fight. Like, I mean, when you've accomplished what he's accomplished, then you kind of have the right to go up,
right,
and really find yourself in the championship fight. So,
I mean, we saw it.
Wrong with it.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.